West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
As we await the likely first ever indictment of a former U.S. president, the first indictment in American history, we are already seeing another first. Republicans in Congress, led by House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, using their power as congresspeople to act as quasi-defense attorneys for a former president in a potential criminal case. And not just in the court of public opinion, which, needless to say, is also happening. In addition to his normal Fox News hits, on Monday, Congressman Jordan took it upon himself, reportedly at the request of one of President Trump's lawyers, to send this letter demanding the testimony of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor, of course, investigating Trump's alleged hush money payments. And what Congressman Jordan was asking for here, for a state prosecutor to testify before Congress, to lay out all of his evidence and internal communications about an ongoing criminal investigation in front of a bunch of allies of the very person that investigator might be trying to prosecute. Well, that is a 5-alarm fire in terms of the separation of powers. It is what Congressman Jordan himself might call the weaponization of the federal government. Now, Mr. Bragg politely declined Chairman Jordan's request this morning, saying in a letter that Bragg's office will, quote, always treat a fellow government entity with due respect, and requesting a meet and confer to understand whether the committee has any legislative purpose. It sort of seems clear what the committee's purpose is. Now, unfortunately, Jim Jordan is not just some random letter writer. He is a congressman, and he is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. He has subpoena power, and he is likely to at least try to use it. So exactly how District Attorney Bragg responds to these House Republicans and how Democrats respond, all of that really matters, because this is likely just the first indictment against President Trump. The odds are pretty good that the leading Republican candidate for president in 2024, that he will be actively fighting multiple criminal indictments while on the campaign trail. And that candidate seems to think so, too. Today, Trump called for all of the prosecutors in all of the investigations into him. He called for them to be removed from office. On Alvin Bragg specifically, Trump both referred to the black prosecutor as a Soros-backed animal and referred to his office as the Gestapo. And Trump used that charged language while criticizing calls for his followers to respond peacefully to this potential indictment. Trump is trying to reframe this narrative from being an investigation into his alleged crimes, and he is instead trying to make it an investigation into the investigators. And Republicans in Congress are using the power of the federal government to help him. Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Raskin, thank you so much for being here. You are a scholar of the law. We have heard the phrase investigate the investigators many times in the Trump era, but this feels different. And is this even legal for Jim Jordan to ask Alvin Bragg to come before Congress in the middle of an open investigation?
Well, let's start with this. I mean, we actually have jurisdictional authority over the Department of Justice in the House Judiciary Committee, but it is very well established that even there with the DOJ, where there's real jurisdictional oversight responsibility, that we cannot intervene in an ongoing case. Then you take it from the federal level to the state and local level, where we have no jurisdictional power over state investigative and prosecutorial authorities. And this is just unheard of and outrageous. It's clearly an attempt to elevate Donald Trump completely above the law, completely above the Constitution. And that's what's so scary about this. The GOP has turned into a messianic cult of personality around one guy who has proven himself to be a one-man crime wave, and they've all wrapped themselves in their careers and their destinies around Donald Trump.
It is staggering to me that Trump's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, reportedly suggested that the House Judiciary Committee do this, and they have in turn followed suit into what a morass that you, I think, rightfully suggest could be unconstitutional. And then there's the reality of if they actually did this, you told the Washington Post, and I agree with this, that it could completely backfire even if they managed to get Alvin Bragg up to the Hill. Can you talk about the ways in which Democrats see this as a potential danger zone for Republicans if they do, in fact, go through with all of this?
Well, Alex, the emperor has no clothes at any level. I mean, during the impeachment trial, the rhetoric of all the Republicans was, well, if there's a real problem, you don't need to impeach and convict him. Just prosecute him when he leaves office. That's fine. Now all of the prosecutors are saying there are these criminal offenses we want to research, and they say, how dare you prosecute a former president, someone who's put himself forward to run for president again? I mean, they will devise any argument to try to guarantee the total immunity and impunity of one Donald Trump. So they're taking us into completely unknown territory as a society today.
I do wonder, I mean, when you talk about terra incognito and new territory, it's not just what Trump is asking Congress to do in this sort of extrajudicial kind of fashion. It's also the threats that he is directing at prosecutors, and in particular, the Manhattan District Attorney, calling him a Soros-backed animal. And then today, the former president shared a post on Truth Social that is a link to an article that shows a picture of Trump holding a bat next to Alvin Bragg's face. I mean, does that rise to the level of a threat of violence against a prosecutor?
Well, some of the people who are in the D.C. jail right now as January 6th convicts or suspects are people who wielded baseball bats and batons and flagpoles and metal poles and other weapons like that. So Donald Trump is obviously sending a not very subliminal, subtle signal to his most avid followers out there. I trust that the good district attorney has sufficient security, but it's a very dangerous moment when you have people at his level giving license to violence and to violent attacks, including on law enforcement. I mean, this is something that we're going to be dealing with tomorrow when Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be leading a delegation from the House Oversight Committee to go to the D.C. jail to visit the January 6th defendants who she describes as political prisoners, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn or Nelson Mandela in South Africa, or Navalny today. These are not political prisoners. There are 20 of them there. 17 of them have been charged with assaulting federal officers, including with baseball bats and batons and Confederate flagpoles and spraying them with noxious chemicals and so on. Those are the people that they're going to visit tomorrow. And by the way, they are being treated just fine in D.C. jail. There are two facilities there. There's the central detention facility and there's a central treatment facility. They are in by far the better facility with open area. They're guaranteed guaranteed 4 or 5 hours a day outside of their cells. They get to go outside, weather permitting. They have access to recreation. They have computer tablets available to them for more than 12 hours a day in an institution that's been fully accredited by the American Correctional Association. So they've got it pretty good as prisoners and detainees and suspects go. Now, some of them have still not pled guilty yet or been convicted of anything. They're entitled to the presumption of innocence. But a lot of the people that they're visiting tomorrow, I think 8 or 9 of them, have already pled guilty to serious charges like assaulting federal officers. And all of them are being charged with very serious offenses like seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to assault federal officers, staying in an excluded facility with a dangerous weapon, disobeying the officers, wielding weapons against officers and so on. So, my Republican colleagues don't talk about any single case. They will not name any of these people because they don't want the media looking into what they actually did. But I highly commend to you a report that was done by Just Security, which goes through the cases of the people who are actually there. And the media should keep that in mind when they're touring the facility tomorrow of these so-called political prisoners. And by the way, while they're calling for the release of political prisoners, I would love it if Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chairman Comer and Lauren Boebert would call for the release of Alexei Navalny, who's a real political prisoner, held by the war criminal Vladimir Putin in Russia right now for his stand against the corruption of the Russian government. Will they call for the release of a real political prisoner, Mr. Navalny? I challenge them to do that while they're calling for the release of many of these people who've already been convicted of violently assaulting our officers.
I think we know whether they are going to defy Putin and call for Navalny's release, but I sincerely appreciate the invocation of Alexei Navalny's name and the work he has done to try and bring justice and transparency to Russia, and also B, the invitation for Republicans to do the right thing.
It is Friday, the 24th of March of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, indeed. Well, how are you out there? We're heading into another weekend, and who knows what's going to happen. Grand jury in Manhattan will attend, I believe, to the Trump matter on Monday. They are they're looking at some other cases that have nothing to do with Trump. Now, one might consider that to be a foreboding type of situation. I thought everything was being fast-tracked, but of course, that was Trump. Because there's bigger things that are happening in his universe. And I would not put it above Trump to find a case that would be the weakest on all the dockets. Weakest in whatever is determined as weakest. The one that he could manipulate the most, let's say. And so let's go after the Soros-backed black man in Manhattan. Yeah, boy. Let's put it this way. If you have to invoke Soros, it's like invoking the Templars, all right? You know right off the bat they are just pulling at straws. They have nothing. Except gross anti-Semitism. They're just trying to trigger that lizard brain that, or the part of the brains of the lizard brain part of their reptilian followers. I'll get it out. That's all they're trying to do. That little hypothalamus. Get that going. Next thing you know, its jaws are a-cracking, and hey, I want to eat whatever's in front of me. Sometimes even off to the side. So they got nothing. They know that they've been caught red-handed selling nukes to who knows who, probably the Saudis. I'm sure Saudis and others. maybe not even just nukes, maybe actual, or not nuke secrets, but actual nukes. I'm sometimes wondering. You never know with this guy. All we do know is that Jared mysteriously got a bunch of money to the tunes of billions, trillion. Where'd all that money go? I'm sure that he shared it with daddy-in-law. I'm sure of it. He had to. That was his job. So to go after Trump is now their defense is that it's all political, as if going after Hunter Biden and Ashley Biden is not. Give me a break. Calling up Zelensky when he just become president and pretty much, doing a Godfather thing on him. Hey, you do me a little favor, I do you a little favor, maybe heaven forbid, but I will have to. And Zelensky's going, I was actually voted in to kick people like this guy out of government. And I've got the United States of America, who we are depending upon to keep from being invaded by Russia, telling me that I got to bend a knee and find some dirt on his political rival. This is long before Joe Biden was running for president. Please. Unbelievable. But they're brazen. They'll do anything. They count on their followers not knowing very much. I mean, they revel in it. They proclaim it. I love my poorly educated followers. If they knew anything, they wouldn't be following me. Damn right. Then they whine about, there's a two-tier justice system. Damn right, this guy's getting treated with kid gloves. Anybody else in America would have their ass slammed in the slammer right now. Jesus. And now he's calling for violent insurrection again. Violence in the streets. If it was Bobby Seale, they would have chained him to the chair and gagged him. And I'm not talking about tying a gag around his mouth. I'm talking about a sock stuffed down his throat. Dry waterboarding. Hey, you want an equal justice system, treat him like Bobby Seale. Come on. Oh, yeah, you can't do that. See, it's even worse that it's black people taking him to court. Animals. George Soros-backed animals. Unbelievable. Yeah. And the Nazis get to fly their flags. They get to have their private schools funded by a state. But you can't read about the rise and fall of the Third Reich. Nope. You can't even teach about Michelangelo and the Statue of David. Can't. It's pornography. You'll get fired. Yeah, that was a Hillsdale school. Hillsdale type school. This guy who fired the principal there, yeah, he says she wasn't fired. We forced her to quit. And he basically said that. She wasn't fired. We just forced her to quit. Okay. Oh, my God. I said that we're a Hillsdale school and we teach morality. What's that? Yeah, I got your morality, pal. It seems to have a kind of a stiff-legged march. Is that what your marching band does? Tubas? Not necessarily sousaphones, but they could have a few there, but mostly tubas. Doing a Wagnerian march, goose-stepping around the track. Mm-hmm. Sometimes right down the middle of the field, but generally back in the day, they didn't do it on the field, the marching band, because it would mess up the field for the players. Wait until the game. Yeah, sometimes they had to do it in the streets around the school. Goose-stepping. Not our school, but Hillsdale must, if they have a marching band. Do they have one of those? I don't know. Maybe that's for, I don't know, those people. Okay. So you can't learn about Michelangelo's David because I guess it's because it shows his pee-pee. Heaven forbid. Oh my God, I got a pee-pee like David does. Well, I don't know. Do you? Is it something to brag about? I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Some people are not as well endowed as David. And I got to tell you, David's not really that, Okay. People might be offended, and they were. All right. I guess we're getting back to witchcraft days again. I think that's what we're doing. Yep. Okay. Oh, I guess I should mention about what's going on in the personal realm of my existence, and that is Mom's still in the hospital. Hopefully we can get her out today. I wish somebody would talk to me. Yeah, it's a little weird. When they do talk to me, it's like, will you be willing to pay? Yeah, they'll talk to you about that. Is there a timeline on when my mom's going to get out? Oh, we don't know anything about that yet. Oh, thanks. Though I am being positive. My mom can get a little down by being trapped at a hospital. I don't blame her for that. So we'd like to get her home, but of course we want her to be stable and everything in place, and that's supposedly what is happening. I did have a conversation about the home care people that would be coming in during the week, and the occupational and physical therapists that would be coming in also to help her, because part of strengthening her heart is getting her to move. My mom has a knee-jerk reaction against anything that is deemed exercise, including the word exercise. We have to do these verbal strategies to get around using the term exercise, so that Mom doesn't have a adverse reaction to it. I'm not exercising. Okay. All right. And you have to understand, all of us kids... Oh, I mentioned this before. I'm sorry. We all were sort of athletic, maybe as our form of rebellion. Maybe. Anyway, trying to get her home and get a little concerned. I mean, you hate seeing your parents deteriorate in front of your eyes while you're deteriorating as well. Man. Okay. Shall we tell you what's in store for you here in the salon? Look, we have an exciting day, do we? Yes, we do. An exciting weekend. What's going to happen? I'm not even talking about basketball. Yeah, everybody's talking about basketball, but I'm not going to, because you know it's there and I know it's there, and there it is. Anyway, what do we have in store for you here in this salon we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as we begin in the Bistro Cafe of said salon? Republicans have abandoned all pretense and are brazenly weaponizing Congress to save Trump, and we know that. On the rest of the menu, a Pennsylvania judge dismissed the latest GOP mail ballot lawsuit, and they just keep coming. Unions for service workers at Walt Disney World reached a deal that would raise the starting minimum wage from $15 to $18 an hour, just in time for that big old LGBTQ conference they're going to have at Disney World too. Hey, some of their nose at Ronnie. And reversing the state's long opposition, North Carolina just approved Medicaid expansion. Well, fancy that. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the founder of Terraform Labs, who is wanted in South Korea in connection with a $40 billion crash of the firm's cryptocurrency, was arrested in Montenegro. And the Finnish president formally signed, sealed, and delivered the Nordic country's historic bid to join NATO. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page from that chat room link to the left and just down a smidgen is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and possibly if you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance, if you could send those funds to us once a month, that really helps us pay our bills and all the other cost that is incurred running this powerhouse of resistance. So thank you to those who have been so generous in doing so and allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable, you can do so by going to @NetrootsRadio on those platforms, and Tom takes care of those. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable @JusticePutnam. Fancy that. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that linked up on social media so that you can read the actual articles, because there they are. Follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest, and do please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Yes, I have a little stuffy nose. We're not supposed to have pollen around here, but something's getting to me. Okay, this first offering is by Mark Levy as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Pennsylvania judge yesterday, Thursday, dismissed a lawsuit filed by the Republican National Committee that had sought to prevent counties from helping voters ensure their ballots count by fixing minor technical deficiencies on mail-in ballot envelopes. The judge said county courts, not a statewide court, has jurisdiction. The lawsuit filed in the statewide Commonwealth Court had argued that state law prevents what is known as ballot curing, and as a result must be barred by the court. But Commonwealth Court Judge Ellen Kiesler agreed with lawyers for the state's Democratic administration and ruled that county courts have jurisdiction in the matter, not a state court. Because counties have the authority under state law to make rules, regulations, and instructions necessary to run an election. Ballot curing has been practiced primarily by Democratic-leaning counties in Pennsylvania. It includes notifying voters that they forgot to do things like date or sign their ballot envelope, and gives them the opportunity to come into a county office and fix it before the polls close. Oh, that's a terrible thing, isn't it? The state's lawyers also argued that no state law bars ballot curing. Lawyers for Democratic Party groups that intervened in the case called it a win for voters, you would think. The lawsuit is one of many filed by Republicans over the past 3 years in an effort to stop mail-in voting in Pennsylvania, or at least to throw out mail-in ballots. Mail-in voting tilts heavily toward Democrats in the presidential battleground state. We are all old enough when mail-in ballots were really the purview of rich Republicans. There was never a concern then, was it? It was only when the hoi polloi started using mail-in ballots on force that it became a problem. Republicans filed this lawsuit in September, 2 more months before Pennsylvanians elected Democrats to the governor's office and the U.S. Senate. Republicans made similar arguments in lawsuits filed in 2020 before and after the presidential election. In one of those cases, Trump's campaign sued counties, all Democratic-leaning counties, over their practice of ballot curing. The federal judge, a Trump appointee, rejected their claims and told Trump's lawyers that they should be suing counties that did not help voters cure ballots. Mike Schneider of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Unions for service workers at Walt Disney World reached a tentative deal with the company yesterday, Thursday, that would raise the starting minimum wage from $15 to $18 an hour by the end of the year in a pact that could set the basement for starting pay throughout Central Florida's sprawling tourism industry. Disney World service workers, who are in 6 unions that make up the Service Trades Council Union Coalition, plan to vote next Wednesday on the contract proposal after rejecting an earlier offer that fell short of the $18 hourly minimum wage last month. The agreement covers about 45,000 service workers at the Disney theme park resort outside of Orlando. Workers could see their hourly wages rise between $5.50 to $8.60 by the end of the 5-year contract if it's approved, union leaders said. Securing an $18 minimum hourly rate this year, increasing the overall economic value of Disney's original offer, and ensuring full back pay for every worker are the priorities union members were determined to fight for, said Matt Hollis, head of the Coalition of Unions. Today, he said, we won that fight. Disney said that in a statement that the tentative deal also included industry-leading benefits and health insurance coverage and tuition reimbursement. Our cast members are central to Walt Disney World's enduring magic, which is why we are pleased to have reached this tentative agreement, Jeff Volley, president of Walt Disney World Resort, said in a statement. The contract with the service workers covers the costume performers who perform as Mickey Mouse and other Disney characters, bus drivers, culinary workers, lifeguards, theatrical workers, and hotel housekeepers, representing more than half of the 70,000-plus workforce at Disney World. The contract, approved 5 years ago, made Disney the first major employer in Central Florida to agree to a minimum hourly wage of $15, setting the trend for other workers in their region, dominated by hospitality jobs. of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Medicaid expansion deal in North Carolina received final legislative approval yesterday, Thursday, capping a decade of debate over whether the closely politically divided state should accept the federal government's coverage for hundreds of thousands of low-income adults. North Carolina is among states with Republican leaders that are considering expanding Medicaid after years of steadfast opposition. Voters in South Dakota approved expansion in a referendum in November, and in Alabama, advocates are urging lawmakers to take advantage of federal incentives to expand Medicaid in order to provide health insurance to more working people. When Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, a longtime expansion advocate, signs the bill, it should leave 10 states in the U.S. that has not adopted expansion. North Carolina has 2.9 million enrollees in traditional Medicaid coverage. Advocates have estimated that expansion could help 600,000 more adults. Medicaid expansion is a once-in-a-generation investment that will make all North Carolina families healthier while strengthening our economy, and I look forward to signing this legislation soon, Cooper tweeted, while he still can. There's no set start date in the final bill for expansion under the legislation, but it still comes with one caveat. It cannot happen until after a state budget is approved. This usually happens in the early summer. Cooper panned that provision, which would give GOP leaders leverage to include unrelated items he may strongly oppose. The House voted 87-24 in favor of the deal after little debate and a preliminary vote on Wednesday. Many Democratic members on the floor stood and clapped after it passed, which is usually not permitted under chamber rules. Almost two-thirds of the House Republicans also voted yes. The Senate already approved the legislation last week in near unanimous votes. Well, that is fabulous news. And it is time to take us to our break, and that's a good time. So let us now go to our break, and when we get back, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Down to Earth. Warning, 2 tiny spoilers. So I'm having this problem. I keep looking for light escapist fare and keep running into books, comics, TV, and movies that want to talk to me about how horrible this world is. Childhood friends and movie geeks Scott Beck and Brian Woods are back with their take on the dinosaur monster survival thriller. 65 throws us back 65 million years ago, where Mills, Adam Driver, is a space pilot on a 2-year round trip hauling some cryosleep passengers. That's 2 years away from his sick daughter, but the job will fund her care. Sadly, asteroids damage the ship and it crashes on prehistoric Earth, the only survivors being our man Mills and a young girl, Koa, played by Ariana Greenblatt. Their escape ship is 17 kilometers away through a primeval jungle where just about every dinosaur, bug, and plant wants to kill and eat everyone else, including our duo, hence the rest of the film. Beck and Woods have said that in their horror movies, they like to combine high-concept threats and relatable emotional stakes, like in their teen survival film Nightlight, which looks at both teen suicide and the desire to fit in. 65 returns the duo both to the adversarial forest of Nightlight and the being hunted experience of A Quiet Place. It isn't horror, but the physical survival gauntlet is paired with the challenge of emotional survival, as Mills must overcome being separated from his daughter and, tiny spoiler number 1, as Koa eventually learns that her parents have died in the crash. Tiny spoiler number 2, that bright light in the sky at the beginning of the third act, well, that's prehistory's most famous theorized asteroid coming to end the Cretaceous period. So, in 65, aliens land on Earth, and what do they find? a planet full of beings killing each other in their desperate struggle for survival who do not notice an impending environmental Armageddon that you can literally see coming. Well played, guys, and thanks a lot. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
this is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Arthritis is common among veterans. Traumatic and overuse injuries during active duty are risk factors for developing arthritis. Fortunately, there are low-cost or no-cost strategies that can help veterans manage arthritis. Physical activity can reduce pain and improve function. It can also help improve mood and play a role in managing other chronic conditions, such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You can do low-impact activities, such as walking, biking, swimming, and water aerobics, all good forms of exercise. Arthritis-specific classes can help you get started. Information on classes, exercise programs and tools are available at cdc.gov/arthritis. These resources can help reduce pain and improve function. Learning self-management techniques can help all veterans become more active, improve their overall quality of life, and thrive.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
As the days get longer and the weather warms, people of all ages will start to spring into action. Spring is a great time to breathe fresh air, stretch your arms and legs, and get physically active outdoors. Lack of physical activity contributes to obesity, heart disease, stroke, and other chronic health conditions. Fortunately, many communities are making it easier and safer to be physically active. Neighborhoods across the country are working together to create more public spaces for walking, running, biking, and other physical activities. Adults should get at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week, and children should get 60 minutes a day. If you find it hard to walk to a local recreation center, park, or playground, learn how to make your neighborhood a place that makes healthy living easier. Visit makinghealtheasier.org for information about ways communities can change to get more people outside and moving.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Who is the only professional baseball player ever to have pitched 2 perfect games? And why don't we know that pitcher's name?
I'm Lily Ledbetter, and this is a Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
The first answer is Gene Fout, who over an 8-year career won 140 games and had an amazing minuscule earned run average of 1.23 for the South Bend, Indiana Blue Sox. The second answer, because the South Bend Blue Sox were a women's team, part of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, which was portrayed in the 1992 film A League of Their Own. Fout pitched her first perfect game against the Rockville, Illinois Peaches in 1951, and her second 2 years later against the Kalamazoo Lassies. She was a natural athlete who in high school played field hockey and basketball and ran track. She also pitched batting practice for the Greenville Cubs, a men's semi-pro team that practiced on a field near her home in Pennsylvania. And for the Blue Sox, when she wasn't pitching, she played third base or the outfield. Gene Fout died on February 28th at the age of 98. The headline of the New York Times obituary read, Gene Fout, a professional pitcher who was in a league of her own. We take this moment to remember Gene Fout and to thank her and the other players of the AAG-PBL for indeed being in a league of their own.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the birthday of Dorothy Height, a civil rights leader and a champion for black women domestic workers. Domestic workers had largely been left out of the labor protections passed as part of the New Deal. Dorothy had grown up seeing firsthand how this exclusion impacted the women who cleaned homes and did other domestic work. Dorothy was born in Richmond, Virginia. Her mother was a nurse in a black hospital, but when the family relocated to Pennsylvania, her mother could not find work as a nurse. Like many black women who moved north during this time period, Dorothy's mother took a job as a domestic worker. She worked long hours for low wages. As Dorothy became involved in civil rights organizing, she remembered the experiences of her mother. In 1957, she was elected president of the National Council of Negro Women. From that position, she became a leader in the effort to improve working conditions for domestic workers. She became one of the leaders of the National Committee on Household Employment. This committee brought together representatives from 23 organizations concerned about domestic labor. Dorothy explained the urgency of the effort, stating, "Let's treat household employment as a profession in which workers have a contract and are assured fair hours and compensation, as well as coverage by our protective labor laws." Today, labor organizers are still fighting to win fair working conditions for domestic workers. Grassroots organizing has led states like New York and California to pass a Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. Similar efforts are underway in other states to give workers the dignity and the respect that they earn. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 33 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are under an active winter weather advisory. Rain and snow showers this morning, which will be changing to rain showers in the afternoon. Winds will be out of the west at 5 to 10 miles an hour, with highs expected around 45. And then rain and snow showers this evening, transitioning to snow showers overnight. Lows in the low 30s, winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. And then snow showers early on Saturday morning will transition to rain showers later. Highs in the mid-40s, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And we should have about a quarter inch of rain for tomorrow. And then maybe a drying out period for Sunday and Monday, and then more rain for the rest of the week. And that could change, or it could not. Looks like pollen is still rated as none here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is good at 25 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is in the moderate range and has ticked down to level 4. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.38 inches. Visibility is at 5 miles, and relative humidity is at 98%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that crowdsources from around the world. London is 55 degrees with a light rain. Paris is 60 degrees and mostly cloudy, and they are under an active flood watch. Rome is 66 and sunny. Kyiv is 64 degrees and cloudy. Kabul is 42 with rain. Hong Kong is 76 degrees with light rain showers. Tokyo is 58 degrees with rain. Sydney, Australia is 70 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 46 degrees and fair and also under an active flood watch. And New York, New York is 44 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Tim Tagnon of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Police in Montenegro have arrested Terraform Labs founder Do Kwon, who is wanted in South Korea in connection with a $40 billion crash of the firm's cryptocurrency that devastated retail investors around the world, the European country's interior minister said yesterday, Thursday. Montenegrin police arrested an individual who is believed to be one of the most wanted fugitives, South Korean citizen Do Kwon, Interior Minister Philippe Azik said on Twitter. South Korea's Justice Ministry today confirmed the arrest of Kwon and another unidentified individual linked to the cryptocurrency crash, and said it will proceed with steps to extradite them to South Korea. Both South Korea and Montenegro are signees to the European Convention on Extradition. South Korea asked Interpol in September to circulate a red notice for the 31-year-old Kwon across the agency's 195 member nations to find and apprehend him. Kwon and the other man had been hiding in Serbia, but moved to Montenegro after South Korean investigators tracked their whereabouts and asked Serbian authorities to detain them. The men were arrested at Montenegro's Podgorica airport while trying to depart for Dubai using fake Costa Rican passports. Kwon and 5 others connected to Terraform are wanted because of allegations of fraud and financial crimes in relation to the implosion of its digital currencies in May of 2022.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Jerry Tanner of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Finnish president yesterday, Thursday, formally sealed the Nordic country's historic bid to join NATO by signing into law the required national legal amendments needed for membership in the Western Military Alliance. The move by President Sauli Niinisto means Finland has completed national measures needed to join NATO and is now just awaiting approval from Turkey and Hungary, the only 2 of NATO's 30 existing members that have not ratified its bid. In Turkey, on Thursday yesterday, a parliamentary committee approved Finland's NATO application. The state-run Anadolu agency reported, bringing Helsinki a step closer to joining the alliance. Members of the Turkish Parliament's Committee on Foreign Affairs voted in favor of Finland's bid a week after Turkish President Erdogan said his country would move forward with ratifying it. Finland's application could be ratified by the full Turkish Assembly, where Erdogan's party and his allies hold a majority, as early as next week. Turkey has presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled for May 14th, and ratification is expected before that. Admitting new countries requires unanimous approval from the alliance members, and the parliaments in Ankara and Budapest have not yet given the green light. After delays of several months, the Hungarian parliament is finally expected to approve Finland's accession on March 27th. Finland's 200-seat legislature endorsed the country's NATO bid with an overwhelming 184-7 majority on March 1st. Finland and neighboring Sweden applied to become NATO members 10 months ago in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, abandoning decades of non-alignment. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.